Her millionaire husband never touched her until the driver revealed the truth that changed her life forever. She gave her husband everything, her loyalty, her youth, her sleepless nights filled with silent tears. Yet every time she reached for him, he pushed her away from their bed like she was nothing. Her driver, dangerously handsome, loved her in secret, and though she felt that forbidden fire too, loyalty kept her trapped between desire and duty. Many nights she trembled under the weight of temptation, but always walked away, until the day he whispered, "Hide in the trunk. You need to see the truth." When that trunk opened, her entire world exploded. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to your own family channel, Mr. Peter Stories. May the Almighty bless every woman with unshakable strength, endless peace, and love that never fades. May her heart remain pure, her soul unbroken, and her smile shine brighter than the sun. She is the light of every home, the voice of compassion, the reason the world still has hope. May God protect her steps, heal her wounds, and crown her days with grace and dignity forever. But my precious family, YouTube has made up its mind to vanish our family channel. I've tried everything, and today there are tears in my eyes. If you are not with me in these difficult days, you will lose Mr. Peter forever. I don't want to give up, because we built this together with love and faith. Let's promise we will rise again, hand in hand. Like this video, comment and share it with your best friends, because this family's light will never die. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." Some women are born into cages, but Ada Sidney built hers with hope and called it marriage. The emerald gown weighs nothing against her skin, yet she feels crushed beneath its silk promise. Her reflection stares back from the floor-length mirror. A stranger wearing diamonds that catch the light like tears refusing to fall. The necklace at her throat cost more than most people see in a lifetime, each stone a small fortune, each one as cold as the man who gave it to her. She fastens the clasp with trembling fingers, watching her own hands betray her with their shaking. The perfume comes next, dabbed behind her ears, between her breasts, at the pulse points where warmth should mean something. $3,000 an ounce, imported from a place she has never been, bottled promises of seduction that will evaporate into nothing before midnight arrives. Tonight marks 5 years. 5 years of sleeping beside a man who treats her like expensive furniture. 5 years of preparing herself like a sacrifice on an altar that refuses her offering. The mansion breathes around her, all marble and mahogany and money, every corner designed to impress, every room a testament to wealth that cannot buy what she needs most. She smooths the gown over her hips, the fabric clinging to curves that go unnoticed, adjusting the neckline that reveals enough to tempt, but not enough to seem desperate, though desperation is exactly what coils in her belly like a living thing. Her makeup is flawless, applied with the precision of someone who has learned that perfection might finally be enough, even though it never is. The bathroom counter holds the evidence of her preparation. Lipstick in a shade called Desire, blush that promises to mimic the flush of passion, mascara that makes her eyes look larger, more vulnerable, more wanting. She has become an artist of illusion, painting hope onto her face every night, washing it off in tears when the performance ends. But tonight is different. Tonight is an anniversary, a milestone, a marker of time that should mean something. Surely tonight he will remember what they were, what they promised each other when the world was new and anything seemed possible. The staircase spirals downward into the heart of the house, and she descends slowly, one hand trailing along the polished banister. Each step rehearsed in her mind 1,000 times. She has imagined this moment all day. Imagined Orson Holden looking up and seeing her, really seeing her. Imagined desire flickering in his eyes the way it did when they first met. But imagination is a liar, and hope is its accomplice. The house sprawls around her in excessive luxury, rooms she rarely enters. Spaces designed for entertaining guests who stopped coming when they realized the hosts barely spoke to each other. she finds Orson exactly where she knew she would. His study smells of leather and ambition, walls lined with books he has never read, shelves holding awards that mean everything and nothing. He sits behind his desk like a king on a throne, glasses perched on his nose, eyes fixed on documents that matter more than anything with a heartbeat. The lamp casts harsh light across his features, turning him into a sculpture of concentration, beautiful and untouchable as marble. Her husband looks like power incarnate, shoulders broad beneath expensive fabric, jaw sharp enough to cut, hair silver at the temples in a way that makes other women stare with envy at her good fortune. But none of them have to go home with him. None of them know what it means to be invisible to someone who promised to cherish you until death. Though this slow dying seems worse than any quick ending, Orson, her voice comes out softer than she intended, barely louder than breath. He does not look up. The scratch of his pen across paper continues without pause. Numbers and signatures more important than her existence. She watches him work, this man she married when she was young enough to believe that love could overcome anything. He chose her from a crowd of volunteers at a charity gala, singled her out with attention that felt like sunlight after a lifetime of shadow. He pursued her with flowers and promises, with words that painted a future she wanted so desperately she never questioned whether he meant them. Orson, it's our anniversary. This time he glances up, and the briefness of his attention cuts deeper than a blade. His eyes pass over her emerald silk, over her exposed skin, over the diamonds at her throat, and register nothing. No heat, no interest, no recognition that she has spent hours transforming herself into something worthy of desire. His gaze returns to the papers, as though she were a painting he has grown tired of looking at. As though she were wallpaper, as though she were nothing. The sound is not agreement or acknowledgement, just noise to fill space before silence reclaims it. She stands in the doorway, frozen between approach and retreat, while her carefully constructed hope begins to crack. The anniversary dinner she spent all afternoon planning waits in the dining room. Candles burn low in their holders, wax pooling like small deaths. Roses droop in crystal vases, their petals already browning at the edges, wilting under the weight of neglect. The food has gone cold. Prime cuts of meat congealing in their own fat, vegetables turning grey, dessert melting into puddles of sugar and cream. Everything she touched today has died waiting for him to care. Something in her chest fractures, but she has become an expert at moving through pain. She crosses the study, her heels clicking against hardwood, each step an announcement he ignores. When she reaches his desk, she can smell his cologne, that scent she used to bury her face in when they were new to each other. Now it just smells like absence, like the ghost of intimacy that never really existed beyond their wedding night. She remembers that night sometimes, the only time he touched her with something resembling passion, and wonders if even that was performance rather than truth. I made dinner. Your favorite. I'm not hungry. The words are flat, delivered without looking up, without pause in whatever task consumes him. She watches his hand move across paper, signing something that will make him richer, while she stands here getting poorer in ways that have nothing to do with money. The desperation that has been building all day finally overwhelms her carefully maintained composure. Her hand reaches out before she can stop herself, before fear can hold her back, and she places it on his shoulder. The contact sends electricity through her palm, even though she knows what comes next. Even though she has lived this rejection so many times, she could script it. Orson jerks away from her touch as though she burned him. The violence of his recoil makes his chair scrape backward, makes papers scatter across the desk, makes her hand hang suspended in empty air where his warmth was a moment before. He looks up at her finally, and the expression on his face is worse than indifference. There is something close to disgust in his eyes, something that says her touch is contamination, that her desire is an insult he must endure. Why do you always do this? His voice carries an edge that could draw blood. She pulls her hand back, cradling it against her chest, as though he struck her, and perhaps he did in every way that matters. The question hangs between them, unanswerable because she does not know why she keeps trying, why she keeps offering herself to someone who finds her repulsive. Do what? Touch you? Want you? Try to be your wife? The questions tumble out before she can stop them, raw and desperate, and everything she promised herself she would not be tonight. His jaw tightens, a muscle jumping beneath skin pulled taut with irritation, and he begins gathering his papers with movements that speak of barely contained anger. Make things uncomfortable. I told you I have work to do. Why can't you understand that? Why must you always push when I've made it clear I need space? It's our anniversary, Orson, 5 years of marriage. 5 years of trying to be enough for you. I'm aware of the date. Ida, I don't need theatrical reminders or guilt trips about anniversaries that don't require celebration. He stands, stacking documents with precise movements, each gesture designed to communicate his desire to be anywhere but here, with anyone but her. She feels tears gathering hot behind her eyes, threatening to spill over and ruin what remains of her dignity. The makeup she applied so carefully will streak and smear, turning her into a tragedy instead of a temptation. When he moves toward the door, she steps into his path, one last desperate attempt to make him see her, to make him remember that she exists. Please, just one dinner, just one night where you look at me like I matter. For a moment, something flickers across his face. Not desire or love or even pity, but something that might be guilt before it vanishes beneath irritation. He steps around her, careful not to make contact, maintaining distance as though she carries contagion. And his voice when he speaks carries finality that crushes whatever hope remained. I have an early meeting. Don't wait up. His footsteps echo through the house, each one a small death, until a door slams somewhere in the distance and silence crashes back down like a wave intent on drowning. She stands alone in his study, surrounded by the evidence of his success, achievements framed on walls that have witnessed every rejection. Every time she begged for scraps of attention. The tears come then, hot and bitter, because 5 years of rejection have finally broken something inside her that she fears will never heal. She sinks into his chair, the leather still warm from his body, and stares at the papers he abandoned. Numbers and contracts and deals worth millions. All of it mattering more than she does, more than vows spoken in a church before witnesses who have probably forgotten her name. Her hand drifts to the diamond necklace at her throat, and she wonders what it means to be worth a fortune in jewelry, but worthless as a wife. The question has no answer, only the terrible silence of a mansion that has become a mausoleum for a marriage that died so slowly she never noticed until she was living with its corpse. The candles in the dining room are still burning, waiting for a celebration that will never come. Chapter 2. The Hunger That Eats. Morning arrives without mercy, sunlight cutting through curtains like accusations. Ada wakes alone in a bed large enough for 4 people, the sheets beside her cold and undisturbed, evidence that Orson Holden never came to bed at all. She lies still for a moment, staring at the ceiling with its ornate molding, feeling the ache between her legs that has become her constant companion. It starts the moment consciousness returns, a physical reminder of everything she is denied, a hunger so deep it has roots in her bones. Some mornings the ache is dull, manageable, something she can ignore through sheer force of will. Other mornings it is sharp and demanding, making her press her thighs together in search of friction that brings no relief. She rises and goes through the motions of her morning ritual, with the efficiency of someone performing a play they have rehearsed too many times. The bathroom is all marble and gold fixtures, luxury that mocks her with its excess, wealth displayed in every surface but providing no comfort. She stands under the shower spray, water hot enough to hurt, as though pain in one form might distract from pain in another. Her hands wander where his never do, touching herself with a desperation that brings shame but no real relief. The pleasure when it comes is hollow, mechanical, leaving her emptier than before because it is her own hands and not his. She presses her forehead against the tile and wonders how long a person can survive on this diet of nothing. How many more mornings she can wake up starving before she simply stops waking at all. Downstairs, she finds evidence of his existence scattered through the house like breadcrumbs from a ghost. Coffee cup in the sink, still warm to the touch. Newspaper scattered across the kitchen island, with sections he deemed unworthy folded carelessly. His briefcase is gone from its usual spot, which means he left for wherever he spends his days, doing whatever occupies his mind more thoroughly than she ever could. The housekeeper arrives precisely on schedule and busies herself with tasks that keep the mansion pristine. This monument to a life that looks perfect from the outside. Aida watches the woman work and wonders if she knows, if she can sense the rot beneath all this polished surface, if she goes home and tells her own husband about the sad woman in the big house who has everything except what matters. The day stretches ahead with all the appeal of an execution she must attend. She has a charity luncheon at noon, then a committee meeting for a fundraiser she no longer cares about but cannot abandon without raising questions she is not prepared to answer. Her calendar is full of obligations designed to fill time, to give her life the appearance of purpose, to make other people believe she is fulfilled. She dresses carefully, choosing a dress that flatters without trying too hard, applying makeup that hides the shadows under her eyes and the hollowness in her cheeks. The woman in the mirror looks put together, successful, enviable. The woman in the mirror is a magnificent liar, and she has perfected the art of deception through years of practice. At the luncheon, the wives surround her with their chatter about renovations and vacations, and children who refuse to appreciate their privilege. She smiles and nods and contributes appropriate sounds, all while feeling like she is watching from a great distance, separated from them by glass that distorts their voices into meaningless noise. One woman complains about her husband wanting intimacy too often, how exhausting it is to keep up with his demands, how she wishes he would give her space to breathe. Ada feels something violent stir in her chest, rage so pure it takes her breath away. She excuses herself to the bathroom and grips the sink, staring at her reflection until the fury passes and leaves only the familiar emptiness that has become her natural state. She returns home in late afternoon. The house as silent as a tomb, as cold as the grave she feels herself sinking into. In her bedroom, she opens her closet and looks at the collection of lingerie she has accumulated over the years. Silken lace in every color, expensive pieces that have never fulfilled their purpose, each one a prayer that went unanswered. She bought them with hope, each purchase another attempt to find the magic combination that would finally make him see her. Red for passion, black for seduction, white for innocence, every shade and style she could imagine. But hope is a currency that devalues with use, and she has spent herself into bankruptcy, buying lottery tickets that never win. That night, she tries again because she cannot help herself, because the hunger has teeth and they are tearing her apart from the inside. She appears at dinner in a dress that clings to every curve, the fabric so thin it might as well not exist. Her hair loose and wild, the way she imagines he might like if he cared enough to have preferences about anything related to her appearance. Orson sits at the head of the table, his throne in this kingdom of two, scrolling through his phone between bites of food he does not taste. When she enters, his eyes pass over her without pause, without recognition, without any indication that he notices she is wearing something designed to seduce him. She takes her seat at the opposite end, the length of expensive wood between them, a canyon that cannot be crossed with words or wishes. "How was your day?" Her question hangs in the air, pathetic in its normalcy, desperate in its attempt to create connection where none exists. He does not look up from his phone, his fingers continuing to scroll through whatever holds his attention more thoroughly than she ever could. Fine. One word, delivered with all the enthusiasm of a man reading a grocery list. She watches him eat, mechanical movements of fork to mouth, chewing and swallowing without tasting, consuming fuel rather than enjoying a meal. She wonders when food became just sustenance for him, when everything beautiful in life was reduced to function, when pleasure became something he no longer sought. I was thinking we could go away somewhere, a vacation, just the two of us. Maybe somewhere warm, where we could relax and remember why we fell in love. This time he does look up, and his expression is so blank it hurts more than anger would. Anger would mean he feels something, even if that something is negative. This blankness is worse because it suggests she does not inspire any emotion at all. I can't take time off right now. You know that. You never can. There's always something more important than spending time with your wife. The words come out sharper than she intended, frustration bleeding through her carefully maintained composure like blood through a bandage. His jaw tightens, and she sees the warning signs of his displeasure, the subtle shifts in his expression that tell her she has crossed some invisible line. My work pays for all of this. He gestures vaguely at the dining room, at the house, at the life she is supposed to be grateful for. Perhaps a little appreciation would be more appropriate than complaints about my priorities. She wants to scream that she would trade every bit of it for one night where he looked at her with desire instead of obligation. She wants to tell him that she is dying slowly in this palace he built, starving while surrounded by plenty, suffocating on luxury that cannot sustain life. But the words die in her throat because she has said them before in different forms, and they never penetrate the armor he wears against her. After dinner, she follows him to their bedroom with dread and hope warring in her chest, two enemies locked in eternal combat. She changes into a nightgown that costs more than most people's monthly rent, red silk that leaves little to imagination, fabric so sheer it might as well be mist. When she emerges from the bathroom, he is already in bed, his back turned to her side, his breathing suspiciously even in that way that tells her he is awake, but pretending otherwise. She knows he heard her enter, knows he saw her in his peripheral vision, knows he is choosing to ignore her presence. She slides into bed beside him, her body trembling with need and shame in equal measure. Her hand reaches out, tentative and terrified, and settles on his shoulder. The muscle beneath her palm is rigid, tense, rejecting her before she can even speak. The rejection is physical, written in his body language, and she feels it like a blow. "Orson, please. I need you." The words are barely a whisper, but they carry every ounce of her desperation, every bit of hunger that consumes her. He shrugs her hand off without turning, without acknowledging her need, his voice when it comes heavy with irritation. "I'm tired, Ada. Go to sleep." Something breaks in her then, something fundamental that she did not know could break any further. The tears come hot and fast, spilling over before she can stop them, and she begins to sob. Great heaving sounds that shake the bed, that fill the room with her pain, that demand acknowledgement even if she cannot demand desire. She cries with her whole body, convulsing with grief for a marriage that exists only in legal documents, for vows that mean nothing, for hope that has nowhere left to go. He does not turn around, does not offer comfort or explanation, does not reach for her or ask what is wrong, just lies there, a wall of indifference, while she falls apart beside him. The crying exhausts her eventually, leaving her hollow and aching, her throat raw, her eyes swollen, her body limp with the effort of expressing pain that has no outlet. She lies in the darkness, her eyes burning, and feels the hunger eating her alive. It is a living thing now, this need, with claws that shred her from the inside. She closes her eyes and prays for sleep to take her, to give her a few hours of peace from this torture. But sleep, when it comes, brings no peace at all. Chapter 3. The Dangerous Awakening. The driver arrived during the spring when everything outside was blooming, and Ada Sidney felt nothing but winter inside her bones. His name is Bert Douglas, and from the first moment she saw him standing beside the car in the driveway, something shifted in the air around her. The change was subtle, like the first crack in ice before a thaw, but unmistakable once noticed. He does not look like someone who should be opening car doors for a living. His suits are cut too well, the fabric expensive in ways that only people who know expensive things can recognize. His watch catches sunlight and throws it back in ways that suggest it cost more than most people earn in months. His bearing is confident without being arrogant, his posture suggesting authority rather than service. His eyes holding hers when he introduces himself with an intensity that makes her breath catch in her throat. Orson hired him without her input, replacing the previous driver who retired after serving them faithfully for years. She learns this from a text message while sitting in her morning room, surrounded by flowers she did not arrange, in a house that feels less like a home with each passing day. The text is brief and informational, typical of Orson's communication style when he bothers to communicate at all. She wonders if he even remembers what it feels like to speak to her about anything that matters, or if she has been reduced to the status of employee who receives instructions rather than wife who deserves conversation. The first time Bert drives her somewhere, she sits in the back seat and tries not to notice how his eyes find hers in the rearview mirror. She has a fundraiser to attend, one of countless obligations that fill her days with purpose that rings hollow. The cause is worthy, she supposes, something about literacy programs for underprivileged children, but she stopped caring about worthy causes when her own life became unworthy. But today feels different because of the way he watches her, the way his gaze traces her face, like he's memorizing details he might need to recall later. "Where to, Mrs. Holden?" His voice is deeper than she expected, textured with something she cannot name, but that sends warmth spreading through her chest. She gives him the address and tries to focus on her phone, scrolling through messages that do not matter, from people who do not really know her. But she can feel his attention like heat on her skin, like sunlight after months of winter, and her body responds in ways that shame and thrill her equally. When they arrive at the venue, he opens her door with movements that seem almost choreographed, graceful and deliberate and somehow intimate, despite the formality of the gesture. His hand supports her elbow as she steps from the car, and the contact sends electricity racing up her arm, through her shoulder, settling in her chest like a match struck in darkness. She pulls away quickly, murmuring thanks that sounds breathless even to her own ears, and flees into the venue before she can examine why her heart is pounding like she has run a marathon. Throughout the fundraiser, she cannot stop thinking about his touch, about the way his fingers felt against her skin, about the warmth that lingered after contact ended. It's the first time in longer than she can remember that someone has touched her with intention, with awareness of her as a woman rather than an obstacle to be navigated around, and her body responded like it had been shocked back to life after a long death. That night, she lies in bed beside Orson's turned back and thinks about Bert's hands. The shame that accompanies the thoughts is overwhelming, crushing her with its weight, but not strong enough to stop the images from flooding her mind. She imagines those hands on her body, imagines desire in someone's eyes when they look at her, imagines being wanted with an intensity that matches her own need. The fantasy is so powerful, she has to bite her lip to keep from making sound, has to press her thighs together against the ache that builds and builds until she thinks she might die from it. The next day, Bert appears at her door with packages that were delivered while she was out. She did not call for him, did not request his help, but here he is, carrying boxes up to her private sitting room with ease that suggests strength hidden beneath his expensive clothes. She watches him move through her space, and everything about him seems wrong for someone in his position. The confidence, the expensive cologne that fills the room when he passes, the way he occupies space like he owns it rather than serves in it. He sets the packages on her desk and turns to face her, and suddenly the room feels too small, the air too thin, her skin too tight for her body. Just set them there. "Thank you." She means to sound dismissive, to establish boundaries that will protect her from whatever dangerous thing is building between them. But her voice comes out breathless instead. He places the packages down carefully and turns to face her, and she realizes he is standing closer than propriety dictates. Close enough that she can see flecks of gold in his eyes. Close enough that his scent overwhelms her senses. Close enough that she can feel heat radiating from his body. "Mrs. Holden, forgive me if I'm overstepping, but you seem sad." The observation is so unexpected, she nearly laughs. Sad is too small a word for what she feels, too gentle a description for the slow death she is living. Sad is what you feel when your favorite restaurant closes, or when rain ruins outdoor plans. What she feels is more like drowning on dry land, suffocating while breathing, dying while her heart continues to beat. "I'm fine, thank you." That will be all, but he does not leave. Instead, he takes another step closer, close enough that she can count his eyelashes if she wanted, close enough that she has to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. His proximity makes her dizzy, makes her body respond in ways that terrify and thrill her. "Are you? Fine, I mean. Because from where I'm standing, you look like a woman who's been starving for a very long time." The words hit her like a physical blow, too accurate to bear, cutting through her defenses like they were made of paper. She feels her face flush hot, feels her body responding to his proximity in ways that shame her. Her nipples harden beneath her silk blouse, visible evidence of her desire, and she sees the exact moment his eyes drop and notice. The corner of his mouth curves in a smile that looks almost predatory, knowing, satisfied at this confirmation of her response. "You need to leave now." Her voice shakes despite her attempt at authority. He raises his hands in surrender, but his smile does not fade, does not suggest any real retreat. "Of course, but when you get tired of being fine, I'll be around." He leaves, and she collapses into her chair, her entire body trembling like she has been through an earthquake. She presses her hands between her thighs and feels how wet she is, how much her body betrayed her with its response to a man who is not her husband. The guilt that follows is crushing, but underneath it runs something else, want, pure and undeniable and terrifying in its intensity. Want that has been denied so long it has become desperate, dangerous, capable of overriding every moral imperative she clings to. Days pass, and she tries to avoid him. But the mansion is only so large, and their paths cross with a frequency that feels less like coincidence and more like fate. She finds him in the garage one morning, washing one of Orson's collection of expensive cars. He has removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that make her mouth go dry. She cannot stop staring at the play of muscle beneath skin, at the way water runs over his hands, at the casual strength in his movements. He looks up and catches her watching, and his smile is knowing in ways that make her want to run. "Good morning, Mrs. Holden. Did you need something?" Everything, nothing. Things she cannot name or ask for. Things she has no right to want but wants anyway, with an intensity that frightens her. She shakes her head and turns to flee, but his voice stops her before she can escape. "It's a shame." She turns back despite herself, against her better judgment drawn by curiosity that will destroy her. "What is? That a woman like you is going to waste. You should be worshipped like the goddess you are. Instead, you're withering like a flower without water." The words are too intimate, too presumptuous, and she should be angry. But anger is not what floods through her. It is hunger, raw and desperate, and she hates herself for it even as her body leans toward him like a plant toward sunlight. "You don't know anything about my life. I know enough. I see the way you walk through this house like a ghost haunting rooms that should be full of life. I see the way your husband looks through you like you're not there, like you're transparent. I see a woman dying of thirst while surrounded by water she's not allowed to drink. She wants to argue, to defend her marriage and her choices, to maintain the fiction that everything is fine. But the words are too true, cutting too close to the bone, exposing wounds she has been trying to hide from herself. She stands there, caught between denial and admission, while he watches her with eyes that see too much, that strip away her defenses and lay her bare. This conversation is inappropriate. You work for my husband. I work for money, Mrs. Holden, not for him. And right now, I'd work for free if it meant putting a smile on your face. A real smile, not the one you wear for the world like armor. Her breath comes faster, her body responding to his words like they are hands on her skin. She takes a step backward, then another, trying to create distance that might restore sanity to a situation that has veered into madness. Stay away from me. I'm married. I'm loyal. Whatever you think you see, you're wrong. She runs then, actually runs, her heels clicking frantically on marble floors until she reaches her bedroom and locks the door behind her. She leans against it, her heart hammering, her body screaming for something she cannot allow herself to want. But want does not require permission, and it has already taken root somewhere deep inside her, where reason cannot reach. Chapter 4. The Dream That Destroys. The weather turns cold with autumn's arrival, and with it comes a bleakness that settles into Ada's bones like it plans to stay forever. She throws herself into preparations for the annual charity gala she organizes, needing something to fill the hours between waking and sleeping, needing purpose to replace the emptiness that has hollowed her out from the inside. The event will be spectacular, a testament to her organizational skills, and completely meaningless in the grand scheme of her life. But meaningless is better than nothing, and nothing is what she has been living with for so long, she has forgotten what anything else feels like. Bert drives her to meetings with vendors and venues, and the tension in the car grows thicker with each passing trip. They do not speak beyond necessary exchanges about destinations and schedules, but the silence is heavy with everything unsaid. She catches him watching her in the mirror, his eyes dark with something she refuses to name because naming it would make it real, would make it something she has to confront. Sometimes she allows herself to look back, to meet his gaze, and feel the heat that rises between them like steam, dangerous and intoxicating and completely forbidden. One afternoon, returning from a particularly tedious meeting with the caterer, who cannot seem to understand that dietary restrictions matter, rain begins to fall in sheets. The sky opens up and pours fury onto the city, turning streets into rivers, traffic into chaos. They sit trapped in the car while water drums on the roof, creating a cocoon that feels too intimate for comfort. She stares out the window, watching water blur the world into abstract shapes, trying to ignore the way her body responds to his proximity in this enclosed space. "May I ask you something personal, Mrs. Holden?" His voice cuts through the sound of rain, and she tenses, knowing that whatever he asks will be dangerous simply because he is the one asking. That depends on the question. Why do you stay? The question is simple, only 3 words, but it carries the weight of everything she will not allow herself to examine. She could lie, could offer the responses she has rehearsed for anyone who might dare to ask. She could talk about commitment and vows and the sanctity of marriage. But sitting here in the rain, cocooned in this space with a man who sees too much, she finds the lies will not come. Where would I go? This is my life. These are the choices I made. No, this is your prison. There's a difference between a life you chose and a sentence you're serving. She turns to look at him then, really look at him in the mirror, and finds his eyes already on her with intensity that steals her breath. She should look away, should maintain the boundaries that keep her safe, but she cannot seem to move. You don't understand. I made vows. They mean something to me, even if they don't mean anything to him. Vows are meant to be kept by both people. Mrs. Holden, what good is your loyalty to someone who broke his promises the moment he decided you didn't matter? You're being faithful to a ghost, to a marriage that exists only on paper. The words cut too deep, striking at truths she has been avoiding like landmines in her own mind. She feels tears burning behind her eyes and blinks them back furiously, refusing to cry in front of him, refusing to show him how completely he has dismantled her defenses. This is not appropriate. You're my driver, not my therapist or my friend or anyone who has the right to comment on my marriage. I'm someone who sees you. That's more than he does. That's more than anyone else in your life seems to do. The statement hangs in the air between them, impossible to deny. The traffic finally breaks, and they drive the rest of the way in silence that feels heavier than words. His statement echoes in her mind long after she is alone, after she has climbed the stairs to her empty bedroom, after she has stood under scalding water, trying to wash away the truth he spoke. That night, she makes one final attempt with Orson Holden, driven by guilt over her thoughts about Bert, by desperation to make her marriage mean something, by the fading hope that maybe this time will be different. She appears at dinner in a dress so revealing it is nearly obscene, the neckline plunging almost to her navel, the fabric clinging to every curve like it was painted on. She has spent hours on her appearance, perfecting every detail from makeup to hair to jewelry, and when she enters the dining room, she holds her breath and waits for any reaction at all. Orson glances up from his phone, his expression unchanged, mild interest at best. The same look he might give a piece of art he is considering purchasing, but finds only moderately appealing. Are you going somewhere after dinner? The question lands like a blow, knocking the wind from her lungs. She stands there in the doorway, exposed and humiliated, wearing vulnerability like armor that failed to protect her from anything. No, I dressed for you, for our dinner together, for us. He looks at her again, really looks this time, and she sees no appreciation in his eyes. What she sees instead is closer to annoyance, as though her effort is an inconvenience he must acknowledge before returning to more important matters. That's nice. A bit much for dinner at home, but nice. He returns his attention to his phone, dismissing her as thoroughly as if she had left the room. She sits through the meal in silence, watching him exist beside her without seeing her, and understands with brutal clarity that she could parade naked before him, and he would find it mildly disruptive to his schedule. The realization is not new, but tonight it hits with the force of revelation, shattering something inside her that she did not know could break any further. That night, exhaustion claims her quickly, her body surrendering to sleep despite her mind's protests. And in sleep she dreams. The dream begins innocuously enough, fragments of her day reassembling themselves in the strange logic of unconsciousness. She is at the gala, moving through crowds of people who do not see her. But then the scene shifts, and she's no longer surrounded by strangers. She's somewhere warm and golden, bathed in light that feels like honey, and Bert is there. He approaches slowly, his eyes holding hers with intensity that makes her knees weak. His hands frame her face with a tenderness that makes her want to weep, and when he lowers his mouth to hers, she tastes forever on his lips. He kisses her slowly, thoroughly, as though he has all the time in the world to learn her mouth, as though kissing her is the only thing that matters in the universe. His lips move against hers with skill that sends fire racing through her veins, and she melts into him, her body responding with hunger that terrifies and exhilarates her in equal measure. "I've wanted this," he whispers against her mouth, his breath warm on her lips. "Wanted you from the first moment I saw you standing in that doorway, looking lost in your own home." The words undo her completely. She pulls him closer, desperate for contact, for the feeling of being wanted that she has been denied so long. It feels like myth rather than possibility. He lifts her effortlessly, carries her somewhere soft where golden light pools like liquid, and then his hands are everywhere, peeling away clothing, revealing skin that aches for his touch, mapping territory that has gone unexplored for so long she forgot it existed. When his mouth closes over her breast, she arcs off the bed with a cry that echoes in the dream space. The sensation is overwhelming, pleasure so intense it borders on pain, and she realizes she has forgotten what it feels like to be touched with desire. His hands continue their exploration, learning every curve and hollow, finding places that make her gasp and moan and beg for more. "Please," she hears herself begging, her voice raw with need. "Please, I need you inside me. I need to feel wanted. I need to know this is real. This is real," he promises, settling between her thighs. "This is the realest thing you've felt in years." When he slides inside her, the pleasure is so intense she thinks she might die from it. He fills spaces she forgot were empty, connecting with parts of her that have been dormant so long she thought they were dead. He moves slowly at first, letting her adjust to the feeling of being wanted, watching her face with an intensity that makes her feel seen in ways that go beyond physical. "Look at me," he demands, his voice rough with desire. "I want you to see who's making you feel this way. I want you to remember this is what it means to be desired." She opens her eyes and meets his gaze, and the connection is so powerful it steals her breath. He begins to move faster, deeper, each thrust striking nerves that have been waiting years for this awakening. The pleasure builds and builds, spiraling higher until she cannot breathe, cannot think, cannot do anything but feel. "Say my name," he commands, his movements becoming urgent. "I want to hear you say it when you come apart." "Bert," she gasps, her body tightening around him. "Bert, please, I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to break into pieces." "Then break," he whispers. "Break, and I'll put you back together." The climax hits her like lightning, pleasure exploding through every nerve ending, her body convulsing beneath his. She screams his name into the darkness, her voice raw with satisfaction and need, and as she falls apart, she feels whole for the first time in years. She wakes abruptly, her body still trembling, her skin flushed with heat and shame. Her nightgown is twisted around her body, damp with sweat, and she realizes with horror that she orgasmed in her sleep. The grey light of early morning filters through the curtains, and she turns her head slowly, dreading what she will find. Orson lies beside her, his face peaceful in sleep, completely unaware of the betrayal that occurred inches away from him. She lies frozen, staring at the ceiling, while shame and satisfaction war in her chest. Her body still pulses with aftershocks, physical evidence of pleasure her subconscious gave her when reality refused. She rises on shaking legs, locking herself in the bathroom, and stares at her reflection. Her eyes are wild, her lips swollen as though she has actually been kissed, her body still humming with the memory of dream touches. She realizes that her mind has given her what her husband never will, and the knowledge feels like both gift and curse. Chapter 5, The Breaking Point. The dream changes everything, because now Aida cannot unsee what her subconscious revealed about the depths of her hunger. She begins noticing Bert Douglas in ways that make her feel like a criminal, watching the way his hands grip the steering wheel with competence that suggests other forms of mastery, the way his throat moves when he swallows, the way his body moves with animal grace that makes her mouth go dry. Each observation feels like a small betrayal, another brick removed from the wall of her loyalty, another step toward a precipice she swore she would never approach. But the wall is crumbling, whether she removes the bricks herself or not, and the precipice keeps getting closer, no matter how carefully she watches her steps. She tries to maintain distance, limiting their interactions to necessary exchanges delivered in tones meant to establish clear boundaries. But the universe seems determined to throw them together with a frequency that feels less like coincidence and more like conspiracy. One morning, she is arranging flowers in the entrance hall, standing on a step stool to reach the tall vase that sits on the console table. She is focused on getting the roses positioned just right when she senses him before she sees him. The air changes, growing charged with electricity that makes the hair on her arms stand up. And when she turns her head, he is standing close, too close, his eyes traveling over her body with undisguised hunger that sends heat flooding through her. "Let me help you with that, Mrs. Holden," His voice is rough, textured with want that he no longer bothers to hide. She should refuse, should climb down and flee to safety, but she stands frozen as he moves closer. He reaches past her for the vase, ostensibly to steady it, but his arm brushes her breast in passing. The contact makes her gasp audibly, a sound she cannot contain or take back. The gasp hangs in the air between them, evidence of her body's betrayal, and she feels heat flooding her face as shame wars with desire in her chest. "Sorry," he murmurs, but his eyes say he is anything but sorry. "Didn't mean to crowd you." His hand remains extended past her, holding the vase steady, and she realizes he has effectively caged her in. She can feel the heat radiating from his body, can smell his cologne mixed with something essentially male that makes her dizzy. Her body responds with a rush of wetness between her thighs that shames her, with nipples that harden into points visible beneath her silk blouse. She watches his eyes drop to notice, watches satisfaction flicker across his face at this physical evidence of her desire. "Move," she manages to whisper, her voice barely functional. "Say please." The command is soft but unmistakable, a test to see if she will submit to his authority, and something in her responds to the dominance in his tone. Her thighs clench involuntarily, her body preparing itself for things she cannot allow to happen. She finds her voice finally injecting steel into it, even as her legs shake so badly she fears she might fall. "Step back, now." He retreats slowly, deliberately, his smile suggesting he knows exactly what effect he has on her. She climbs down from the stool on trembling legs and flees without another word, her heart hammering against her ribs like it wants to escape her chest. She locks herself in her bedroom and presses her back against the door, breathing hard, fighting the urge to touch herself right there, because the need is so overwhelming, it feels like dying. The incidents multiply as spring deepens into summer, each one more dangerous than the last. Bert appears in doorways she is about to walk through, forcing her to brush past him with contact that sends electricity racing through her body. He hands her packages with deliberate touches that linger, his fingers tracing her palm, her wrist, the inside of her elbow where skin is thin and sensitive. Each contact is brief enough to seem accidental, but deliberate enough that they both know the truth. That they are playing a dangerous game that can only end one way. One particularly warm afternoon, she is reading in the garden when he finds her. She looks up to see him approaching across the lawn, and everything in her screams both danger and desire in equal measure. He stops a respectful distance away at first, maintaining the boundaries she has tried to establish. But his presence fills the space between them like he is standing right against her. Flowers are blooming nicely this year. Mrs. Holden. The observation is innocuous on the surface, but his tone suggests he is talking about something else entirely. She closes her book, marking her place with a finger she hopes he does not notice is trembling, and tries to maintain her composure. Yes, the gardeners do excellent work. They understand what plants need to thrive. Flowers need the right conditions to flourish. Sunlight, water, attention. Neglect them long enough, and they wither no matter how much potential they have. It's criminal, really, to let something beautiful die from lack of care. The metaphor is too obvious, too pointed, almost insulting in its transparency. Anger flares in her chest, alongside the desire that never leaves her anymore. If you have something to say to me, say it plainly instead of hiding behind gardening metaphors like a coward. He takes the challenge, stepping closer, then closer still, until he is standing right in front of where she sits. She should stand, should move away, should do anything to create distance. But she remains seated, looking up at him while her heart threatens to break through her ribs, while her breath comes faster, while every nerve in her body screams for his touch. Fine, you're dying here. Slowly, quietly, but dying all the same. Your husband doesn't see you, doesn't want you, doesn't appreciate what he has. And you're so loyal to vows he broke long ago that you're willing to waste your entire life waiting for him to change into someone he will never be. You know nothing about my marriage, nothing about the commitment I made, nothing about what loyalty means. I know everything about your marriage, Mrs. Holden. I know he leaves before you wake and comes home after you sleep. I know he hasn't touched you in so long. You've forgotten what desire feels like. I know you're starving in a palace and nobody seems to notice that you're wasting away right in front of them. The accuracy of his words steals her breath, leaving her gasping like she has been punched. Tears burn hot behind her eyes, threatening to spill over and expose her completely, to show him just how thoroughly he has dismantled her defenses. Why are you doing this to me? What do you want? He reaches out slowly, giving her time to retreat, and tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers linger against her cheek, and the tenderness of the gesture breaks something inside her that she thought was already completely shattered. She leans into his touch before she can stop herself, her eyes falling closed, a small sound escaping her throat that might be pain or pleasure or both. I want to see you alive again. I want to put light back in your eyes that's been gone so long. I wonder if anyone else remembers it was ever there. I want to hear you laugh like you mean it instead of performing for an audience. But mostly, I want you to stop settling for crumbs when you deserve the whole feast. His thumb traces her lower lip, the touch feather-light but devastating. She feels herself swaying toward him, her body making choices her mind refuses to sanction, drawn by magnetism she cannot explain or resist. His face descends toward hers, slowly enough that she could stop this, should stop this, must stop this, before everything changes forever. At the last possible second, reality crashes back in. She jerks away from his touch, standing so abruptly her book falls to the ground. Her hand comes up and connects with his face in a slap that cracks through the garden like a gunshot. The sound echoes off the walls surrounding them, and her palm stings from the impact, but she does not apologize. Don't ever touch me again. I'm married. I'm loyal. I made vows that mean something to me, even if they mean nothing to him. Whatever you think you see, whatever game you're playing, I'm not interested. Do you understand me? But even as she speaks, her body betrays her with evidence that contradicts every word. Her breathing is ragged, her pupils dilated, her lips parted in invitation she cannot take back. He touches his cheek where she struck him, and his smile is gentle rather than angry, understanding rather than offended. You can lie to yourself, Mrs. Holden, but your body's already told me the truth. When you're ready to stop pretending loyalty to someone who doesn't deserve it, I'll be here. I'll always be here. She runs from the garden, her vision blurred with tears that she refuses to acknowledge, and does not stop until she reaches her bedroom. She locks the door and slides down to sit on the floor, her head in her hands, while sobs tear through her chest with violence that scares her. The worst part is that he's right about everything. She is dying here, has been dying for so long she forgot what living feels like. But loyalty is all she has left, the only virtue she can claim in a life that has become morally bankrupt in every other way. That night, driven by desperation and guilt in equal measure, she tries one more time with Orson. She waits until he's in bed, reading his financial reports, then emerges from the bathroom wearing nothing at all. No silk, no pretense, no armor between her skin and his eyes. Just her body offered up in naked vulnerability. One final attempt to make him see her as something worth wanting. He glances up from his papers, his expression registering mild surprise, but nothing resembling desire. What are you doing, Aida? The question is delivered with the same tone he might use to ask about the weather or inquire about dinner plans. She stands there in the doorway, exposed and humiliated beyond anything she has experienced before, while he waits for an explanation, as though her nakedness requires justification. I'm trying to be your wife. I'm trying to make this marriage mean something more than a legal document and separate bedrooms. He sets down his papers with exaggerated patience and removes his glasses. And for a moment she thinks maybe this is it. Maybe vulnerability has finally reached through his indifference. But when he speaks, his voice is tired and annoyed in ways that cut deeper than any blade. Put something on. This is embarrassing for both of us. The words land like physical blows, and she actually staggers backward as though he struck her. Embarrassing. Her desire for her husband is embarrassing. Her need for intimacy is something shameful that must be covered up, hidden away, never acknowledged. She grabs her robe with shaking hands and flees to the bathroom, where she slides down the door and cries until there is nothing left inside her but emptiness. When she finally emerges, he is asleep or pretending to be, his breathing deep and even. She climbs into bed beside him, knowing that something fundamental has broken beyond any possibility of repair. The hunger that has been eating her alive has reached a critical point, and she does not know how much longer she can fight it before it consumes her completely. She closes her eyes and prays for dreamless sleep. But her body knows what it wants, even when her mind refuses permission. Chapter 6. The Trunk Revelation. Summer heat becomes oppressive, pressing down on the city with weight that makes breathing difficult and thinking nearly impossible. Ada moves through her days, feeling like she is wading through water, every movement requiring effort that drains her already depleted reserves. The mansion becomes a furnace, despite the climate control, heat radiating from marble and glass in ways that make her wonder if she is actually in hell and simply failed to notice when she crossed the border. She has stopped trying with Orson Holden completely, the rejection finally breaking something that will not repair itself no matter how much time passes. They coexist in the mansion like strangers who accidentally booked the same hotel, polite and distant and painfully careful not to touch or acknowledge each other's existence more than absolutely necessary. Bert maintains his distance after the garden incident, but she feels his eyes on her constantly. The awareness is its own form of torture, knowing he watches her, knowing he wants her, knowing she wants him back, but cannot allow herself to act on desires that grow stronger every day. The tension builds until she feels like she might snap under the pressure, like the slightest additional stress will shatter whatever fragile control she maintains over herself. One evening, as twilight bleeds the day into darkness and the world transforms into something that exists between states, Bert appears at her door with an expression she has never seen before. All traces of flirtation are gone, replaced by something grave and determined that sends fear skating down her spine. He looks at her with eyes that hold both apology and resolve, and she knows before he speaks that whatever he's about to say will change everything. "Mrs. Holden, I need to show you something." The words are simple, but they carry weight that makes her stomach drop. She should refuse, should send him away, should maintain the boundaries she has fought so hard to establish. But curiosity and something darker compel her to listen, to follow this path wherever it leads, even though every instinct screams danger. "Show me what?" "Leidin, something that will change everything. Something that will destroy the world you think you know, but also set you free from the prison you've been living in. But you have to trust me completely, and I know I haven't earned that." "I'm asking anyway." There is something in his voice, something raw and real, that makes her believe this is important in ways she cannot yet understand. She looks at him standing in her doorway, this man who has invaded her thoughts and awakened desire she thought was dead, and makes a choice that terrifies her. She nods slowly, following him down the stairs and out to the car waiting in the driveway. The night air is thick with humidity, pressing against her skin like hands that want to pull her under. When they reach the car, he opens the trunk instead of the door. She stares at the empty space lined with carpet, confusion warring with the first stirrings of real fear. Her heart begins pounding so hard she can hear it in her ears, blood rushing through her veins, carrying adrenaline and terror in equal measure. "You want me to get in the trunk?" Her voice comes out higher than normal, disbelief making it sharp. He looks at her with eyes that hold such intensity she cannot look away, cannot dismiss this as a joke or mistake. I know how it sounds. I know what I'm asking is insane. But if you want the truth about your marriage, about why he treats you the way he does, about where he goes when he's not ignoring you at home, you'll trust me this once. Everything about this is wrong. Every instinct screams danger, insanity, that she should run back into the house and lock the doors and call the police. Her mind races through possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. But beneath the fear runs a current of desperation stronger than self-preservation. She needs to know, needs to understand why her husband finds her so repulsive when she has tried so hard to be desirable. Needs some explanation for the years of rejection that have hollowed her out from the inside. If you're going to kill me, just promise to make it quick. The words are meant as a joke to cover her fear. But they come out flat, and she realizes part of her would welcome an ending to this endless suffering. He helps her into the trunk with gentle hands, arranging her carefully so she will not be hurt by sudden stops or turns. His touch is tender in ways that make tears spring to her eyes, and before he closes the lid, his fingers brush her cheek with such gentleness she almost sobs. I would never hurt you. Aida, everything I'm doing is to set you free from someone who doesn't deserve your loyalty. Trust me. Please trust me. Then darkness descends as the trunk closes, and she is sealed in a space that smells of leather and gasoline and her own fear. Panic hits immediately, her breath coming in short gasps that make her dizzy. Her hands press against the lid, as though she could force it open through strength of will alone, her palms flat against carpet that feels like the lid of a coffin. The car starts, the engine vibration traveling through her body, and then they are moving. Time loses meaning in the darkness. She tries to count turns, to track their route, to maintain some sense of control over a situation that has spun completely beyond her grasp. But fear makes her mind scatter like birds startled from a tree, and she loses track of everything except the pounding of her own heart. Every bump feels amplified in her confined space, jarring her bones, making her teeth click together. Every stop feels like forever, suspended in darkness, while she imagines what might be happening outside this metal coffin. She begins to wonder if she has made a terrible mistake. What if he is insane? What if this is how she dies, suffocated in darkness while her husband remains oblivious to her fate? What if her body is found weeks from now in some abandoned lot, and everyone says what a shame it was that she trusted the wrong person? The fear becomes so overwhelming she thinks she might vomit, her stomach churning, bile rising in her throat. She presses her fist against her mouth, forcing herself to breathe slowly through her nose, fighting the panic that threatens to consume her. But gradually, as the panic subsides from its initial peak, it is replaced by a strange calm that feels almost like acceptance. If she is going to die, at least it will end the suffering that has become the only constant in her life. At least she will not have to wake up one more morning beside a man who cannot stand to touch her, will not have to spend one more day pretending everything is fine when she is slowly being erased from existence. The thought brings a peace that probably says terrible things about her mental state, but she embraces it anyway because it is better than the fear that was drowning her moments ago. The car finally stops after what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. She hears the engine cut, hears footsteps approaching that might belong to her savior or her murderer. Her body tenses, every muscle coiled tight, preparing for whatever comes next. The mechanism releases with a click that sounds deafening in the silence, and light floods in, blinding her after so long in darkness. She blinks rapidly, trying to make sense of what she is seeing, trying to understand where she is and why. When her vision clears and adjusts to the light, the world tilts beneath her, reality fragmenting into sharp pieces that cut on the way down. Her breath stops in her lungs, trapped there by shock so profound it paralyzes her completely. They are parked in front of a boutique hotel, one of those discreet establishments where privacy is the primary commodity sold alongside the rooms. The entrance is lit with soft golden light that spills onto the sidewalk, creating a stage for the scene unfolding before her eyes. Standing 20 feet away, framed by those lights like actors in a play she never auditioned for, Orson Holden has his arms wrapped around a woman who is not his wife. The woman is young, stunningly beautiful in ways that make Ada feel ancient and ugly by comparison. Her red dress clings to curves that Orson touches with easy familiarity, with ownership that makes Ada's stomach turn violently. His hands slide down her back possessively, cupping her bottom with intimacy that speaks of countless repetitions, of muscle memory built through practice. She watches him kiss the woman's neck, his mouth traveling the same path it once traveled on her own skin a lifetime ago. She watches the woman laugh up at him with the ease of long practice, throwing her head back in delight at something he says. She watches them move together like dancers who have rehearsed this routine until it became second nature, until every touch and glance carries the weight of familiarity. The sounds of the city fade away until all she can hear is her own heartbeat, slow and heavy, like a funeral drum. 5 years of rejection suddenly make horrible sense in a single moment of terrible clarity. He was never cold, never tired, never stressed or overworked or disinterested in intimacy itself. He simply did not want her because he was getting everything he needed elsewhere, from someone younger and prettier and apparently more satisfying in every way that matters. She has been starving herself for loyalty to a man who threw his vows away like garbage, who made her question her own worth while he lavished attention on someone else. Every night she spent crying herself to sleep. He was probably here, touching this woman, the way he refused to touch his own wife. Every time she begged for scraps of affection, he was saving his desire for someone who was not her. The realization hits with such force she cannot breathe, cannot think, cannot do anything but stare at the destruction of everything she believed about her life. Her hands grip the edge of the trunk so hard her knuckles turn white, her nails digging into metal hard enough to break. A sound begins building in her chest, something primal and anguished that has been trapped there for 5 years. When it finally tears from her throat, it is barely human. Part scream and part sob and part something that has no name. It echoes in the quiet street like the death cry of something that once lived but will never live again. The sound seems to go on forever, ripping through her with violence that leaves her shaking. Chapter 7. The Shattering of Everything. Aida climbs from the trunk on legs that barely support her weight, the pavement beneath her feet feeling like it is crumbling into void. The roar in her ears drowns out every sound except her own heartbeat, hammering so loud and fast she thinks it might explode from her chest. 5 years. 5 years of doubting herself, of staring at her reflection and cataloguing every flaw, of wondering what fundamental defect made her so unlovable. 5 years of humiliation and rejection and slow death by 1,000 cuts, all while he was touching someone else with the passion he systematically denied her. Every rejected touch suddenly makes sense. Every turn back, every muttered excuse, every look of disgust when she dared to want her own husband. It was never about work or stress or exhaustion. It was never about anything except the simple fact that he preferred someone else, and rather than tell her the truth, he let her slowly die from the inside out while she blamed herself for his betrayal. Bert materializes beside her, his hand reaching for her arm, perhaps to steady her or comfort her or prevent her from collapsing onto the pavement. The touch ignites something in her that has been building for months, rage so pure and incandescent it feels like enlightenment. She whirls on him with violence she did not know she possessed, her hand connecting with his face in a slap that echoes in the quiet street like a gunshot. The sound cracks through the night, and her palm explodes with stinging pain, but the pain feels good, feels right, feels like the only real thing in a world made of lies. "You knew," You knew and you brought me here to watch this. Her voice is shrill, unrecognizable, raw with pain that has nowhere else to go except out through her mouth in words that cut. She hits him again, her hand moving before her brain can issue the command. The second slap snaps his head to the side, and she watches a red mark bloom across his cheek like a flower opening. But she does not stop. Cannot stop. The third blow follows immediately, harder than the first two combined, and she feels skin split beneath her palm, but cannot bring herself to care. You destroyed everything. You couldn't let me keep my ignorance, could you? You had to show me, had to make me see, had to rip away the last illusion I was clinging to like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Her vision blurs with tears that spill over and run hot down her face, and she realizes she's crying again, always crying, an endless fountain of grief that never runs dry. She wants to keep hitting him, wants to hurt someone the way she is hurting, wants to make the world bleed the way she is bleeding. But her hands finally fall to her sides, exhausted from the violence, shaking with adrenaline and despair in equal measure. Through her tears, she realizes he is not fighting back, not defending himself, not even moving away from her assault. He just stands there absorbing her fury, like he believes he deserves it, his eyes holding hers with something that might be anguish or satisfaction, or both. And suddenly she understands that the anger is not really for him. He is just the messenger, and you do not kill the messenger even when they bring news that destroys your world. The person who deserves her fury is standing 20 feet away, probably trying to decide whether to approach or flee. She turns away from Bert, her gaze swinging back to where Orson and his mistress have frozen in place, alerted by the commotion in the street. The woman looks startled, but not particularly concerned, like this is an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe. Her hand still rests possessively on Orson's chest, marking territory she has already claimed and defended. Orson's face cycles through shock and guilt before settling on something that might be relief, and that is when Aida understands the full horror of what she is witnessing. He wanted this, wanted her to find out, has been waiting for this moment, probably hoping she would catch him so he would not have to be the one to end their marriage. He gets to be the victim of her discovery instead of the villain of deliberate betrayal, gets to tell everyone that she overreacted to a simple affair instead of admitting he systematically destroyed her for years. The calculation in his expression makes her want to vomit. Aida walks toward them on legs that shake so badly she does not know how they hold her weight. Each step feels like walking through broken glass, pain radiating from a source she cannot locate because it is everywhere at once, consuming her from every direction. The distance between the car and the hotel entrance feels infinite, a journey across terrain that keeps shifting beneath her feet. When she finally reaches them, she looks at the mistress properly for the first time, really seeing her. The woman is younger by at least a decade, prettier in obvious ways, possessing all the qualities that Aida has been trying desperately to embody. But more than physical attributes, she looks satisfied, secure in her victory, smug in her conquest of a man who was never worth having in the first place. How long? Her voice comes out steadier than she expected, cold and flat, and almost unrecognizable as her own. Orson has the decency to look away, guilt flickering across his features before he controls his expression into something more neutral. But the mistress meets her gaze directly, her smile pure cruelty, designed specifically to inflict maximum damage on someone already bleeding from 1,000 wounds. Does it really matter? Long enough that he knows what he's been missing. Long enough that he's realized what a colossal mistake he made, marrying someone who can't satisfy even his most basic needs. The words are surgical strikes, each one aimed at the parts of her that are already most damaged. Aida feels something cold settle in her chest where her heart used to be, frost spreading through her veins until she wonders if she will ever feel warm again. The mistress continues, her voice dripping with satisfaction. He told me everything you know, about how you would parade around in ridiculous lingerie like some desperate housewife, about how you would beg him for attention he couldn't bring himself to give. It was pathetic, really. Each word is a knife finding soft flesh, twisting for maximum pain. Ada's breath comes in short gasps, her chest tightening until she thinks her ribs might crack from the pressure. She looks at Orson, this man she married with such hope, this man she gave 5 precious years of her life to, and sees a complete stranger wearing a familiar face. More than that, she sees a coward who could not even end his marriage with honesty, who had to make her the villain of her own story. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to keep letting me humiliate myself night after night while you laughed about the pathetic wife with your mistress? Did it amuse you, watching me try so hard to be enough? He finally meets her eyes, and what she sees there is not guilt or remorse, but annoyance that he has been caught, irritation that his comfortable arrangement has been disrupted. His jaw tightens with impatience, like she is keeping him from more important matters, like even now she is an inconvenience to be managed. You made it impossible to talk to you, Ada. Always pushing, always demanding attention when I clearly needed space. Always making me feel guilty for having a life outside this marriage. I had to find comfort somewhere, and she was there when you were being insufferable. The audacity of making himself the victim steals whatever breath she has left. He continues, warming to his defense now that he has started. Every night you came to bed trying to seduce me, it felt like pressure I couldn't handle. You never understood that I needed breathing room. You suffocated me with your needs, and yes, I've found someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm drowning in expectations. She stares at him, this man who is rewriting history in real time, turning 5 years of his rejection into her failure. The rage that fills her is white-hot, searing, but underneath it runs a current of something else. Clarity, for the first time in their entire marriage. She sees him with absolute clarity, stripped of the illusions she wrapped him in. You're a coward. You're a coward who couldn't end a marriage honestly, so you tortured me instead. You let me believe I was defective when the only thing wrong was your complete inability to be a decent human being. The mistress laughs, the sound grating against Ada's already shredded nerves. Oh, please, don't play the victim now. You had everything, the house, the money, the lifestyle. What more did you want? A husband who actually desired you. How greedy! The words hit like physical blows, and Ada realizes that this woman has been watching her humiliation from the sidelines, probably laughing with Orson about how pitiful she was. The thought makes her stomach turn, bile rising in her throat. She has been performing her grief for an audience she never knew existed. Instead of responding, she removes her wedding ring with fingers that refuse to stop shaking. The platinum band that has become a shackle slides off easily, as though it was never meant to stay. She holds it up in the light where all 3 of them can see it clearly, this symbol of vows that only one person honored. The ring catches the streetlight, throwing fragments of illumination across the pavement like scattered stars. For a moment, she considers throwing it in his face, hurling it at him with all the force of her betrayal. She imagines it striking his forehead, leaving a mark that will remind him of this moment every time he looks in a mirror. She imagines him flinching, imagines the mistress gasping, imagines satisfaction blooming hot in her chest. But he does not deserve the satisfaction of her fury, does not deserve to matter enough to provoke violence. He is nothing now, less than nothing, just a mistake she wasted 5 years learning from. Instead, she turns and throws the ring into the street with all her remaining strength. Her arm extends fully, muscles engaging for one final act of defiance. The ring flies through the air in a perfect arc, catching light as it spins, and she watches it like it is moving in slow motion. It skitters across the asphalt in the glow of streetlights, bouncing twice before disappearing into a storm drain with a sound like a period at the end of a sentence. The symbolism is so perfect it almost makes her laugh. The marriage literally down the drain, washed away like the garbage it always was. I hope she's worth it. Orson, I hope she gives you everything I couldn't, every performance you required that I failed to deliver. But mostly, I hope you remember this moment when she inevitably does to you what you did to me. Because people who cheat with you will eventually cheat on you. It's not a question of if, only when. She sees the flicker of doubt cross his face, sees the mistress's smile falter slightly, and knows her words found their target. She takes one last look at them. These two people who thought they could destroy her and walk away untouched. But she is still standing, still breathing, and that means they failed at the only thing that mattered. And when she leaves you for someone richer or more powerful or just newer, remember that you created this. You taught her that vows don't matter, that loyalty is for fools, that love is just a game where whoever cares least wins. You built this prison you're about to find yourself in. She turns away before he can respond, before he can try to justify himself further, before she has to spend one more second looking at the face of the man who killed her slowly over 5 years. Her heels click against pavement with finality, each step taking her further from a life that was never really alive. She walks back to where Bert stands, waiting beside the car, his cheek still bearing the marks of her fury, and slides into the back seat without looking at him. When he starts the engine, she stares out the window and watches her husband disappear into the hotel with his mistress, the door closing on a life that was already over. She watches until they are out of sight, until the hotel becomes just another building on a street full of buildings, until her past becomes small enough to fit in her rearview mirror. Only then does she allow herself to break completely, sobs tearing through her chest with violence that makes her whole body shake. They drive in silence through streets that blur together, and she realizes dimly that they are not heading toward the mansion. She does not question it, does not care where they go, because nothing matters anymore. Everything she built her identity around has crumbled, leaving her standing in ruins with no blueprint for rebuilding. She cries until there are no tears left, until her throat is raw, until exhaustion makes her limbs heavy as lead. When the car finally stops, she looks up to see a modern estate, all glass and steel and clean lines that speak of wealth beyond what any driver could afford. The architecture is stark and beautiful, honest in ways nothing else in her life has been. Bert turns to face her, and in the dim interior light, his features seem different, sharper, defined by authority rather than service. Before anything else happens, before we go any further, you need to know the truth, all of it. You deserve that much after everything you've been through tonight. She laughs, and the sound is bitter, broken, barely recognizable as something that should indicate humor. More truth? I don't think I can handle more truth tonight. Haven't you destroyed enough for one evening? Isn't one life-shattering revelation enough? This isn't about him. It's about me. About who I really am and why I'm here in your life at all. About what comes next, if you'll let it. Something in his tone penetrates the fog of her devastation. She looks at him, really looks at him through swollen eyes, and waits for whatever final bomb he's about to drop on the smoking ruins of her existence. My name is Bert Douglas, but everything else you know about me is a carefully constructed lie designed to get close to you, and I need you to understand why before you decide what happens next. Chapter 8. The Truth That Unmakes. Aida sits in the car, feeling numb from everything that has happened, trying to process his words through the static that fills her mind. More lies, more deception. She wonders if anything in her life has ever been real, or if she has been living in a house of cards that people keep knocking down for their own amusement. The numbness is almost a blessing, protecting her from feeling anything more than she has already been forced to endure tonight. I'm not a driver, Ada. I never was. I'm a billionaire who built his fortune from absolutely nothing, and I took this position specifically to get close to you. The words should shock her, should provoke questions and demands for explanation, and probably anger that she has been manipulated yet again. But she finds herself strangely empty, as though her capacity for surprise has been completely exhausted by the events of this endless night. She looks at the estate visible through the car window, the obvious wealth on display in every line and angle, and realizes she should have seen it. The expensive watch that costs more than most people earn in half a year. The confident bearing that suggested authority rather than subservience. The way he moved through the world like he owned it because he probably did. Why would you do that? Why would someone with wealth and power pretend to be a driver? It is the only question that matters in this moment. Why would anyone go to such elaborate lengths for her when she's clearly worth so little? Because I saw you. Really saw you in ways that no one else seemed to. At a business conference, watching you navigate the room with such grace, while your husband stood across the space, ignoring your existence completely. And I couldn't stop thinking about you after that night. About what kind of man has a woman like you and treats her like she's nothing worth noticing? He helps her from the car with gentle hands, and she follows him into the house on legs that move automatically, carrying her forward when her mind has stopped functioning properly. The interior is stunning, all open spaces and modern art, wealth displayed with taste and restraint rather than ostentation. He pours her whiskey without asking if she wants it, and she drinks it without tasting anything. The burn in her throat, a welcome distraction from the burning in her chest. I researched your situation after that night. Used resources available to men in my position to learn about your marriage, your life, the public humiliation of being so obviously unwanted by your own husband. And I made a decision that some people would call obsessive and others might call romantic. He sits across from her rather than beside her, maintaining distance that gives her space to process what he is telling her. His consideration for her mental state even now feels both touching and manipulative. I inserted myself into your life deliberately, took the driver position through connections and money, bribing and manipulating until I got exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be close to you, wanted to understand what made you stay in such obvious misery when you could have walked away. The confession should horrify her, should make her angry, but anger requires energy she does not have. Instead, she feels a strange sort of understanding washing over her, the twisted logic of it making sense in a way that probably says terrible things about her current mental state. You manipulated me from the moment you walked into my life. Yes, I won't lie about that or try to soften it. The admission is plain, unvarnished, and somehow that honesty is more valuable than any excuse or justification would be. She appreciates the truth even when it cuts, even when it reveals more manipulation in a life that has apparently been nothing but manipulation from every direction. Every touch, every comment, every moment between us was designed to awaken desire you had buried so deep you forgot it existed, to make you question the loyalty you clung to like a life raft in an ocean of rejection. I wanted you to want me before you knew the truth about your husband's affair. Why? What was the point of making me want you first? He leans forward, his eyes intense in ways that make her unable to look away even though she wants to. Because I needed you to know you could want again. That the problem wasn't some fundamental flaw in you that made you undesirable. I needed you to feel alive before I destroyed the lie you were living. So you would know that life after this devastation was possible. She sets down the empty glass, her hands shaking, and stares at him across the space that separates them. This stranger who is not a stranger, this man who orchestrated an elaborate deception because he wanted her when no one else did. You hired investigators to follow my husband. You documented his affair specifically so you could give me proof when the time was right. Yes, I have months of evidence if you need it for the divorce. Photographs, hotel records, testimony from staff who witnessed their relationship developing. You've been planning this for months. Every moment between us was calculated. Every moment was calculated, yes. But the feelings behind those moments are genuine. I want you so badly it terrifies me, Ada. Every moment of watching you suffer was torture I inflicted on myself. Every time he rejected you, I wanted to tear him apart with my bare hands. She should feel violated, should be screaming at him about boundaries and consent and manipulation. But instead, she finds herself asking the question that cuts to the heart of everything, the only thing that really matters in the smoking ruins of her life. Do you actually want me? Or was that manipulation too? Was every moment of desire I saw in your eyes just another performance? He stands and crosses to her with purpose, kneeling so they are eye level. His hands frame her face with a gentleness that makes tears spring to her eyes, despite her determination not to cry anymore tonight. She has cried enough, has shed enough tears to fill an ocean. I want you so badly it terrifies me. Want you with an intensity that kept me awake at night. Want you in ways that made me do insane things like take a job as a driver just to be near you. The manipulation was real, but the feelings behind it are genuine. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm asking you to understand that everything I did was to set you free from someone who never deserved you. She looks into his eyes and sees truth there, raw and unvarnished and almost painful in its intensity. His thumb wipes away a tear that escapes down her cheek, despite her best efforts to contain her emotions. And the tenderness of the gesture breaks something loose inside her that she thought was completely destroyed. I don't know what to feel about any of this. About you, about him, about myself. You don't have to know. You just survived an earthquake that leveled everything you built your life on. Nobody expects you to start rebuilding immediately. Give yourself permission to just exist in the ruins for a while. He releases her face and stands, moving back to give her space, and the loss of contact feels wrong in ways she cannot explain. She realizes that despite everything, despite the manipulation and lies, he has shown her more care in these moments than Orson showed in 5 years of marriage. Stay here tonight. The guest room is ready. Tomorrow you can decide what comes next, but tonight, just rest. Let yourself fall apart if you need to. Nobody's watching, nobody's judging. He starts to leave to give her privacy, but her voice stops him before he reaches the door. Bert? He turns back and she sees hope flickering in his eyes, fragile and tentative. Thank you for showing me the truth, even though it destroyed me, even though I'll never be the same person I was before tonight. I'd rather live in ruins than die in a beautiful lie. His smile is sad and gentle and full of promise. You won't be in ruins forever. I promise you that. You'll rebuild into something stronger than what you were before. After he leaves, she sits in the silence of his expensive home and tries to understand who she is now, that everything she built her identity around has been revealed as fiction. She is not a wife, not really. Never was in any way that mattered. She's a woman who wasted 5 years on loyalty that was never reciprocated, on vows that only one person honored. But she is also a woman who survived tonight, and somewhere beneath the devastation, she feels the first stirrings of something that might eventually become strength. She sleeps in his guest room, and for the first time in years, she does not dream of being wanted. She does not need to dream anymore, because the hunger has finally been fed by truth, and truth turns out to be more nourishing than any fantasy could ever be. Chapter 9. The Unbearable Tension. Morning arrives with pale light that filters through unfamiliar windows, and Ada wakes disoriented in surroundings she does not recognize. It takes a moment for memory to crash back, for her to remember the trunk and the revelation and the complete destruction of everything she thought she knew. She lies still, staring at the ceiling, and realizes that despite the devastation, she feels lighter than she has in years. The weight of false hope has been lifted, and what remains, while painful, is at least real in ways nothing in her life has been for longer than she cares to admit. She finds Bert Douglas in the kitchen, making coffee with the ease of someone comfortable in his own space. He looks up when she enters, his expression cautious, and she realizes he is waiting for her reaction now that shock has worn off and reality has settled in. She should be angry, probably, should be screaming at him about manipulation and lies and boundaries crossed. But the anger she expects does not materialize, replaced instead by a strange sense of liberation that makes no logical sense. "How did you sleep?" The question is ordinary, mundane, and somehow that normalcy helps ground her when she feels like she might float away from the earth entirely. "Better than I have in years, actually. I think my body was so exhausted from crying that it simply shut down." Something in his shoulders relaxes at her response, and he pours her coffee without asking how she takes it. When he hands her the cup, it is exactly right with the perfect amount of cream and sugar, and she wonders what other details about her he learned during his calculated observation of her life. What happens now? He leans against the counter, maintaining distance that feels both respectful and frustrating in equal measure. "That's entirely up to you. I can take you back to the mansion if that's what you want. Or I can help you find a place of your own where you can figure out who you are outside of being his wife. Or you can stay here while you sort through everything. No pressure, no expectations, no strings attached." She sips her coffee and studies him over the rim, this man who dismantled her life to set her free. "Do you always play God with people's lives? Is this something you do regularly? Only when they're drowning and too loyal to save themselves? Only when watching them suffer becomes unbearable?" The answer should irritate her, but instead she finds herself almost smiling. The expression feels foreign on her face, like a language she has forgotten how to speak after years of disuse. "I need to go back, to get my things at least, and to see him one more time before the lawyers get involved." Within an hour, they are driving toward the mansion through morning traffic. The familiar route feels different now, like traveling toward a life that belongs to someone else, someone naive enough to believe in vows that meant nothing. When they pull up to the house, she sees Orson's car in the driveway, and her stomach clenches with anxiety and anger in equal measure. She enters through the front door, with Bert following at a discreet distance, and finds Orson in his study exactly where she knew she would. He looks up when she enters, and she searches his face for guilt or remorse or anything resembling human emotion. What she sees instead is relief and irritation, like she is an inconvenience that needs to be handled efficiently so he can return to more important matters. "I suppose you want to discuss what happened last night." His tone is so casual, so dismissive, as though she caught him at a minor indiscretion rather than discovered years of systematic betrayal. Something cold and hard forms in her chest, replacing the pain with something sharper. "Discuss what exactly?" "Your affair? The 5 years you spent making me feel defective while you were getting exactly what you wanted from someone else. The fact that you let me humiliate myself night after night while probably laughing about it with her." He has the audacity to sigh, as though her pain is an inconvenience in his carefully managed schedule. "You're being dramatic, Aida. These things happen in marriages all the time. If you had been less demanding, less needy, less constantly pushing for attention I clearly couldn't give, maybe I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for peace." The words are so perfectly designed to cut that she knows he has been rehearsing them, preparing his defense where he gets to be the victim of her unreasonable expectations. She looks at this man she married, this stranger she wasted precious years on, and feels nothing but pity for how small he really is. "I want a divorce. I want nothing from you except my freedom. You can keep everything, the house, the money, all of it. I just want out of this prison you convinced me was a palace." For the first time, genuine surprise flickers across his face. "You're not going to fight me? Demand alimony? Make this messy and expensive? Why would I fight for pieces of a life I don't want anymore? You did me a favor, Orson. You showed me what I was worth to you, And now I can stop wasting my time trying to be enough for someone who was never going to appreciate me, no matter what I did. She turns to leave, to walk out of his life forever, and his voice stops her one final time. You'll regret this. You'll regret walking away from everything I gave you when you realize how hard life is without my money protecting you. She looks back at him one last time, really seeing him clearly, for perhaps the first time in their entire relationship. Everything you gave me was a cage. Orson, I'd rather be poor and free than rich and dying slowly. Enjoy your mistress while she lasts. People who cheat with you eventually cheat on you. The divorce proceedings begin immediately with lawyers Bert provides, and Orson's team tries to paint her as the unfaithful party until evidence surfaces. Photographs of him with his mistress, hotel receipts spanning years, testimony from staff who witnessed the relationship developing. The case crumbles quickly, and Orson's reputation suffers in ways that clearly hurt him more than the dissolution of his marriage ever could. The mistress, it turns out, was never content with her role in the shadows. She has been methodically positioning herself as the next wife, feeding information to society pages, making sure everyone knows she won the prize. Her ambition becomes Orson's downfall as colleagues distance themselves, as deals fall apart. As the empire he built begins showing cracks, Agita moves into Bert's home temporarily, taking a guest room, despite his unspoken invitation to share his space. She needs time to remember who she is outside of being Orson's rejected wife. Time to discover if there is anything left of the woman she was before marriage broke her into pieces. Bert gives her that time with patience that seems inexhaustible. He makes no demands, applies no pressure, just exists in her orbit and demonstrates through actions rather than words that his feelings run deeper than physical desire. But the attraction between them builds with every passing day, growing heavier until the air feels thick with it whenever they occupy the same space. Every accidental touch sends electricity racing through her body. Every moment their eyes meet across a room carries weight that makes her breath catch. She catches him watching her with hunger. He does not try to hide anymore, and she knows her own gaze holds the same desire reflected back at him. 3 months after the trunk revelation, they are alone in his home on an evening when rain pounds against the windows. He pours wine, and when he hands her the glass, their fingers touch and neither pulls away. The contact holds, stretching into seconds that feel like hours, and something in his carefully maintained control finally cracks. I can't keep pretending this isn't killing me. His voice is rough with need that he has been suppressing for too long, and she sets down her glass with trembling hands that betray how much his words affect her. Pretending what? That I don't want you so badly I can barely breathe when you're near. That I don't lie awake at night thinking about touching you. That I haven't been in love with you since the moment I saw you looking lost in a room full of people who didn't see you at all. The confession hangs in the air between them, raw and honest and terrifying in its intensity. She stands slowly, closing the distance between them, and watches his eyes darken with desire and restraint, fighting for dominance. Why do you hold back? You went to such elaborate lengths to get close to me. Why stop now, when there's nothing preventing us from being together? His hands clench at his sides, and she can see the war happening inside him written on his face. Because I want you to be healed first. I want you to choose me with clear eyes, not because you're seeking refuge from pain. I want you whole, not broken into pieces you're trying to fit back together. The words break something open inside her chest, and she realizes that this is what real caring looks like. Not possession or conquest, but patience. Not taking what is freely offered, but waiting until the offering is genuine rather than born from desperation. She reaches up and touches his face with fingers that shake, and he leans into her palm like a man dying of thirst who has finally found water. I'm choosing you right now. Bert, not because I'm broken, but because I'm finally starting to heal. Not because I need refuge, but because I want to know what it feels like to be wanted by someone who actually sees me. He captures her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm that sends heat racing through her body. And his restraint is palpable in the tension of his muscles. Not yet. Soon, I promise, but not yet. I need one more thing first, before I can allow myself to have you. She pulls back, confusion and frustration warring in her chest, with arousal that makes her ache. What more could you possibly need? What else has to happen before you'll let yourself want me the way I want you? He takes her hand in both of his thumbs tracing circles on her wrist that make her shiver, and his eyes hold hers with intensity that steals whatever breath she has left. I need you to be my wife first. Real vows that mean something this time, real commitment that we both choose. I need to know that when I finally have you, the way I've been dreaming about, it's forever. I need the ring, and the promises and the knowledge that you're mine in every way that matters. The proposal is not romantic in any traditional sense, but it is honest in ways that matter more than romance. Honesty has become the currency she values most after living in lies for so long. She looks at this man who destroyed her life to save it, who wanted her enough to orchestrate an elaborate deception, who is now asking for permission to love her properly. Yes, the word comes out strong and clear, no hesitation, no doubt, no fear. Just certainty that this is right in ways her first marriage never was. His smile transforms his face completely, and he pulls her into his arms, holding her with a tenderness that makes tears spring to her eyes, despite her determination not to cry anymore. They stand there in his living room while rain pounds the windows outside, and she feels something shifting inside her chest. Not the death of the old Ada, but her transformation into someone new. Someone who knows her worth, because someone finally showed her she was worth knowing. The wedding is planned for the following month, and every day that passes, the anticipation builds until she thinks she might die from wanting him. Chapter 10. The Phoenix Rising. The wedding happens on a beach at sunset, with waves providing music and seagulls serving as witnesses, small and intimate, surrounded only by people who genuinely care, stripped of pretense and performance. Aida wears cream-colored silk that flows in the ocean breeze, no pretense or armor, just beauty that needs no embellishment. Bert stands waiting at the water's edge, looking at her like she is the only thing in the world that matters. As she walks toward him across sand that shifts beneath her feet, she thinks about who she was 6 months ago. That woman died in a trunk, suffocated by truth, and what emerged is someone stronger. Someone who knows love should feel like freedom. When she reaches him, he takes her hands. The officiant speaks about commitment and choice and forever, but she barely hears because she is lost in his eyes. When vows come, he speaks first. I promise to see you every day for the rest of my life. To want you when we're old. To choose you over everything because you're worth choosing. I promise you'll never doubt your worth again because I'll spend every day proving it. Tears stream down her face, but they are not tears of pain. When she speaks, her voice is steady. I promise to trust you even when it's hard. To believe love can be honest. To choose you back every day. And I promise to never settle for less than I deserve again, because you taught me what it means to be treasured. When they are pronounced married, he kisses her with reverence that makes her knees weak. It is their first real kiss, and desire floods through her body. When they break apart, his eyes promise everything to come. They return to his home as husband and wife, anticipation that has been building for months reaching its peak. He leads her to his bedroom, and she feels no fear, only hunger that has finally found permission. He undresses her slowly, treating each revealed inch like a gift. His hands map her body with reverence, finding places that make her gasp. When his mouth follows, she arcs off the bed with pleasure so intense it borders on pain. I've imagined this so many times. he whispers against her skin. But reality is so much better. He worships her with hands and mouth, driving her higher until she is begging. When he finally slides inside her, the sensation overwhelms. He fills spaces she forgot were empty, and the connection is so intense she thinks she might die from it. They move together with urgency, born from months of denial. When her climax hits, she screams his name. But he does not stop, just drives her higher until she's breaking apart repeatedly, pleasure rewriting every definition she had. They make love throughout the night. Between rounds, he holds her close, whispering words that make her feel cherished. When dawn breaks, she lies in his arms, knowing her story did not end with betrayal. It began again with truth. She thinks about Orson sometimes, but without bitterness. His mistress married him quickly, and his empire continues crumbling. But that is his story now. Her story is waking beside a man who looks at her like she hung the moon, who touches her like she is precious. The hunger that ate her alive has been transformed, not satisfied exactly, because desire between them remains potent but fed, nourished, given permission to exist without shame. She's no longer starving in a palace, but feasting in a home. As morning light streams through windows, Bert wakes and pulls her close. She turns in his arms and kisses him, tasting forever on his lips. Some stories have to burn down before they can be rewritten. She was ash and rubble, but from those ruins she built herself new, and that finally is enough.